Alice, and welcome to our latest edition of Straight Talk. We have with us today our mayor, Larry Martinez. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you, Nicole, for having me.
I know it's been a very busy last month here at the City of Alice, both for city staff administration as well as the City Council, as the entire group worked to get the 2015 budget put into place.
That's correct.
And there were lots of changes made, and so we're going to kind of review some of the changes that the public can expect to see over the next year. It wasn't an easy task dealing with this budget this year. We have some challenges,
No,
just
Nicole.
like everybody else did.
No, it was a real difficult budget. One thing that I am proud of, though, is that the council really looked at the budget and put a lot of work into it. And they looked at some of the line items, cut back on some of the essentials. You know, some people want some things, some people need some things.
Right.
We have to really look at what is it that we actually needed and make sure that we have to really watch what we're doing so that we're not putting more into the budget than we should.
Right, right. And I have to say that this was the first time in many, many years that we saw the City Council take such a proactive role in the planning of the budget, and there were many budget workshops that were held, lots of questions asked, and it really seemed like the council kind of really went through each department and took a hard look at things.
Yeah, and normally what happens with councils is that, you know, as you get into it and you're there for a certain amount of time, you start looking at some of the additional items that are there, and based off their prior experience, kind of get a feel as to what's needed and what's not needed. And a couple examples of the EDC money that was cut, you know, do we need it, do we not need it? So we really put some thought behind it, and I say we, the council, put some thought behind it, and really raised some good questions about, let's take off, if, I don't want to say some of the fat, because I don't think there was fat, but let's take off some of the things that we actually absolutely necessarily need to have, and then maybe we could put onto the budget for some other years. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's all about maximizing your dollars to benefit the whole.
That's correct. That's correct. I mean, there's things that I'd like to have, but I know all of us have a wish list, but sometimes you just can't do that.
Right.
You know?
Well, it's the same thing as when you budget for your homes. You know, you may want a new car this year, but it's not practical. Maybe you have to wait till next year.
That's right. Yeah, I'd like to get a lot of things. I just can't do them.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Right. Well, one thing I want to point out first is that the City Council did vote this time around to go with the effective tax rate of about 27 cents. That's 27 cents per $100 property valuation. Talk a little bit about what went into the thought process of going with that rate rather than going with a higher rate.
Well, you know, again, when the council made a decision to cut some of the things they cut off, or things that we didn't absolutely have to have, you know, we felt that, you know, we don't want to raise anybody's taxes. Who wants to raise taxes? I don't. Nobody else does. It affects all of us. You know, nobody wants to do that. We felt that we needed to work within our restraints to see what we have as far as the effective rate was. We saw that some of the evaluations were down.
Right.
And we felt that, you know, let's stay with what our effective rate is so that we don't create any more burden on the taxpayers of Alice. You know, we have a lot of things that are coming up, so we're just really looking at each line item to make sure that we keep that effective rate where it needs to be at. And like I've told a lot of people, and I've made some quotes in the newspapers, like, we don't want to raise your taxes. People are questioning, well, y'all have the multi-use center, you know, they're going to raise your taxes. And well, we're trying not to do that.
Right.
Because, you know, we are really working at making that goal. So that's important. I thought that was really important that the council, you know, just said, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and we're not going to raise it past that effective tax rate.
Right, right. And you mentioned that that we saw some that valuations dropped. Well, the base in Alice is still strong.
Yeah.
What we saw, the difference of, and I believe Sidney Vela pointed this out at a county commissioners meeting,
That's correct.
was that some of the oil field company equipment has kind of rolled out of town.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of the valuations on that type of equipment has dropped because it's now being used elsewhere.
Yeah, they equipment on your personal property for oil field kind of moves back and forth depending on where their area is at.
Right.
Some of that equipment went to San Antonio. That we all know that, right? But that doesn't mean that equipment's going to stay here. Just today, I met with two companies here in Alice are getting ready to expand. So that equipment might come back for this year. So that kind of fluctuates, and that was probably one of the reasons why we had lost evaluations.
Right.
Revaluations. Mm-hmm. When they looked at personal property, the new buildings are now we got a Taco Bell, now we got a Panda Express, and some other businesses that want to come in. You know, the real property actually went up, but it's that personal property that went down. So we're working at trying to bring them back. We're trying to bring that equipment back so that we can have those evaluations as well.
Well, as we see work from the Eagle Ford Shale start trickling down to other shales south of us, more than likely we're going to see a lot of that equipment move back.
No, when I'm optimistic. I like to be an optimist. I know that equipment will come back, and when it does come back, we need to be prepared for it. And that's why we're still doing what we're doing, because we want to be prepared. A lot of times what happens is that if you're not prepared and then that moves in, then you're struggling to try to keep up.
Right.
We want to continue to try to do what we can as far as our infrastructure is concerned and our water utilities, and just try to address it before, because we know that's going to happen.
Right, right. Another topic that has been really high top of mind along with the council as well as the Alice Water Authority is the future of our water.
Yes.
I know we're looking at possibility of drilling a well out at the Homer E. Dean water plant along with the desalination plant there as we look to address the pros and cons of repairing a water line that runs from Lake Mathis over to Lake Finley.
Lake Finley, right. Yeah. Yeah, that is, we're really looking at that. We just actually got in from a desal conference in Austin, and council members attended that because we thought that it was really important for us to go to that, because that's going to be the future of Alice, Texas. And that was something that I think all council members ran on in their campaign, saying we need to address those, not from a short-term view, but from a 40, 50-year view.
Right.
So there's a lot of options available. When we talk about that slip lining that goes into that line from Lake Corpus Christi, that's a big investment as well. So we're going to have to make a decision on what's going to be economically feasible for the city of Alice.
Right.
And say, look, do we do that line and spend that money, or do we do the desal? And in this conference that we actually had a lot of questions, but I thought they were answered a little bit. So we're trying to get a perspective, not only with the city of Alice, but with the Alice Water Authority, working together with them to come up with a plan and execute the plan. I know at some point, that could be a high dollar amount. So at some point, when we get all this information together, so that we can see what the options are and what are available, we'll probably bring those to the taxpayers of Alice and say, tell me what you all want to do and how we want to do it.
Right.
Because it's going to be a big project.
Well, it's going to be a big project regardless of which route you take, because you're looking at that water line. I believe the price tag on that is, the estimate we've seen so far is about $18 million.
Yeah.
Slip line, that 20-inch.
That's a big number, but yeah.
It is a big number.
Yeah. And don't get scared. We're not saying that we're going to do it tomorrow, okay? So,
no.
But it's important, because if we did that slip line, which is our main source, and we improve that water line or fix that water line, then do we do a desal that could cost us 11 or 12? So we have to outweigh what's our primary source, what's our secondary source. The hardest part for us to know is that if, and God forbid this, that if Lake Mathis goes dry, we're in trouble.
Right.
So we need to plan for a plan B, right? So the council and the Alice Water Authority are looking at those things, looking at saying, well, what do we want to do and how do we want to do it? But once we get that data together, I will put it on the agenda so the council can look at it, and it'll probably be a referendum at some point.
Right,
yeah,
right,
so.
Yes, because it is going to cost us, like you said, we have to look at our water moving forward. And I believe several council members have made the reference that we might need to look at becoming a little more self-sufficient.
And absolutely, who doesn't want to be self-sufficient? I don't like to depend on someone else that I buy things from.
Right.
And those costs will be shared or passed on to us. This is a different way of looking at things and how we prepared for the future. And I want to be prepared for the next 40, 50 years. And it's not only happening in Alice, Texas, it's happened throughout the whole state.
Right.
And it also impacts the state because, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when the state of Texas was going dry, that item was being used to bring economic development from other states that wanted to be here. And let me give you an example. A company that wanted to move to Texas in our area, or whatever area in Texas, was saying, don't go to Texas, because if you go to Texas, there's no water there.
Right.
So if a company that is driven by having a high consumption of water doesn't have the water, they don't want to bring their company over here. So I say us, Alice, Texas, from the governor's office all the way down, are preparing ways for all of us to be able to have a different source of water, so that way we don't have that problem that other states might be incurring when we get into a drought.
Right.
So you can see the impact of what we do and how we do it. It's going to affect us in the long run.
Right. Now, as far as being more self-sufficient, we currently purchase water through the city of Corpus Christi.
That's correct.
Right. And I know this time around with the budget, the council had to weigh a pretty heavy decision in looking at the city of Alice water rates for its residents and, of course, commercial users as well. And what we ended up with was a rate increase.
That's correct.
Now, it had been several number of years since...
7
years. Lucky or unlucky number 7. Since we had a rate increase, and I know that discussions about this probably when you put it all together went over several hours. It was not an easy decision on anybody's part to make. But the rates did go up, I believe, for residential about 22%.
That's somewhere that was in.
And the commercial side about 30%. It was between 22 and 30% on the water rates and those are going to be going into effect.
Come October 1st.
October 1.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Now they're not going to see that until probably about November, December, because our billing cycle runs about a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
So come December, be nice to our water office because I know everybody's going to be concerned about it. And honestly, Nicole, I don't like raising rates for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It affects me, it affects you, it affects everybody, right? But we're in a position here that and it's a real simple arithmetic. It's a good business decision that if we're bringing in $800,000 a month on revenue and I'm spending $900,000 a month on expenditures, I'm in the whole $100,000.
Right.
And you multiply that by 12 months, that's $1.2 million.
Right.
Those monies were coming out of the general fund. It's like your personal savings account. If you're spending more than you're making, then you're having to dip into your savings account to replenish that. How long does your savings account last if you continue to do that? And that's the problem we're having with the city.
Right. Yeah, that's correct. Because I want to point out that the utility fund was expecting to come in as a shortfall of just over $1 million this year, and so if changes were not made, we would have seen that double after the next fiscal year.
And that affects our funding imbalance, what we call our savings account. And if our funding imbalance goes down, then that's not good for us because we always want to maintain a really good, healthy funding imbalance for emergencies. So that fund needs to stay where that's at. If worst comes to worst, God forbid that it does, we have enough money to carry us for 6-7 months. Okay,
right.
So that needs to stay there. So we're really working on making sure that fund is there. But again, I don't like, none of the council raising the water rates. And I think it boils down to like a 6,000 gallon average to about $3.72. Somewhere in that range.
Somewhere in that range.
The more water you use, of course, it goes up a little bit more, right? But it's something that absolutely had to be done, and it's funny because I'll go somewhere now and people are saying, "Hey, you raised the water rates on us." It's like, hey guys, I had no choice. I could have said, you know what, let the other council do it and put them in that position. I think it was the responsible thing for us to do, and we just had to do it. Too bad that we're the ones of the council that did it, but. I feel that it's a responsible thing to do, and that's what we're here and we get elected for.
Right, and another big item that the city has been fighting here recently is the speed with which our landfill is filling up. Not necessarily because of local use, but you have a lot of outside use, a lot of oil field debris being dropped at the landfill that has increased, I think, the speed of which it's filling, the capacity is increasing much quicker than I think anybody anticipated.
And when I was on the council back 15 years ago, whatever it was, I remember every time we did a landfill, it would have cost us, I don't know, 1.2, 1.3. This is like 15 years ago.
To build a new cell?
Yeah, to build a new cell. And it would last us anywhere from 7 to 10 years. So we always knew that we had a good year window of 7 to 10 years. Now we're doing the landfill and it's getting full in 3 to 4 years.
Right.
And that's the reason why we looked at those landfill rates.
And the price tag is up to over $2 million.
Well, we spent $2.2 million to be exact for this last landfill cell, and we're expecting that to be a 4-year window. So before you know it, at the end of another 2 or 3 years, we got to start planning for the next one. Actually, we're planning for the next one already.
Already, right?
Yeah.
Because on your water bill, you're going to notice now also a $4 charge, flat charge on everybody's bill for the landfills dedicated just for the landfill.
And it goes back to arithmetic. It's a real simple thing. We did a study on what it costs us to actually implement trash, or is that the word for it? Process it?
Process the trash
it, right?
At the landfill.
Or the garbage, whatever the word might be, right? That number came in at $46 a ton. Okay. So every time we touch that, it costs us $46. Our rates were at $25. Yeah. So right off the bat, we had people from out of town and from Laredo and different parts of the state coming and dumping in our landfill at that $25 rate. Well, guess what? It's going to start filling up, and we're not charging them what it actually costs us. We're actually losing money there.
Right.
And you can't continue to operate a business. If you had a private business, municipality is like a private business as well. you can't continue to operate at a deficit. If it costs me $5 and I'm selling it for $2, guess what? I'm losing $3, right? So that's the arithmetic when we talk about and how that works. Some of those rates for out of town went up to $70.
Right.
Okay, and I think it's only fair because I don't think the citizens of Alice should be having to pay for that landfill when somebody else is using it, right? So we felt it was important that we bring those rates up to where they need to be, so that way we could have kind of sharing, right? And let the people that are using it more are the ones that are paying for it. I'm not trying to overcharge anybody, or the council's not trying to overcharge anybody, but we need to charge what's enough to make it where we can have that landfill, because in another 3 years or 4 years, I'm going to need another $2 million to do that landfill. I got to pull that out of a general fund or out of certificates of obligation, and then we're in the same position we're in.
Right.
The $4 that we're looking at on that flat fee is to maintain those costs.
Right.
At the end of the 3 or 4 years, we'll have hopefully enough money to be able to implement a new landfill with the money that we have in that $4 charge.
Right.
So when you go to the landfill and they say that they're charging you $4, that's what that's for, okay? It's not that we just want to charge you $4 extra. There's always a reason what we're doing, how we're doing
It's
it.
specifically earmarked for the purpose of constructing a new cell down the road 3-4 years.
Yeah, and I think some of those numbers came in, Nicole, at about $450
A year.
$450 or $500,000. So at the end of 4 years, I'll have almost what, $2 million.
Almost $2 million.
So that's what that reason was for that. Okay, and then of course, you know, and what we were looking at from the commercial versus the residential side, the commercial was paying a lot less than what the residential side was paying, right? So if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like $69.31 that commercial was paying versus residential. We thought that that's something that needs to be a little bit more on an even par. Okay, the residential people that are on fixed incomes, they don't have a revenue source to bring more money. They get a cost of living adjustment, and that's all they get. The business and commercial side, and God knows that we're trying to help our businesses, but they have an avenue to where they can raise a little bit more. They might charge 10 cents for the taco board, but that's how they get the revenue. So we had to be cognizant of what the residential people are, the people that are on fixed incomes, and know that those are the actual taxpayers of Alice, citizens of Alice, that we're trying to maintain a low rate or try to keep it where it's at so that they're not impacted that much.
Right.
So
one thing I wanted to point out was prior to the council going in and reviewing the rates, whether it was the water rates or the landfill rates or even the golf course rates, because the rates of the golf course also went up across the board, $2 flat.
$2.
There were studies done, comparative studies done for each of these categories between the city of Alice and area communities. And I want to say that even with these increases, Alice still kind of remained on par with everyone else.
you're right. You know, when it came to actually the water rates and the golf court rates, the golf course rates as well. I'm getting tongue tied there, right?
Well, it included the golf carts.
Yeah, it did include the golf carts. That's right. You know, what we were finding out when we looked at the budget and what we cut, we found out that we're losing about $110,000 a year at the golf course.
Right.
Now, that's a quality of life issue. That's something that we provide for our citizens.
Right.
It's a little bit of a revenue source as well for people that come from out of town and play at our course. But, you know, at $110,000 a year, that's probably a little bit too much. So the council really looked at it and said, hey, look, you know, your rates are lower than any other golf course in South Texas. We need to do something with that so that we can at least break even or come close to it. Those $110,000 go back into our budget so that we can actually do something else, whether it be streets or water lines or sewer lines. So, you know, they took a hard look at that. I had a few complaints on it, and I understand. It's like everything else, though. Like, if the golf course is going to be charged more, they're telling me, well, Larry, improve the golf course. Well, we will look at that, and we'll try to improve it. Nobody wants to have a rate increase if they don't improve what the services are.
Right.
So, you know, those are some of the things that we're working on so that way we can make it bigger and better for everybody. So,
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course.
It's not an easy thing to do, let me tell you.
No.
No.
I'm sure it isn't. And like I said, this was the first time in many years that I saw so many budget workshops set up and as many questions that were asked.
Yeah, and we tried to schedule the workshops, Nicole, in the evening and during the day. There were some times that we had to do it during the day and a little bit late evening because, you know, staff was involved in a lot of our meetings. And it's kind of hard for staff too. They come over here at 8 o'clock in the morning to stay to 10 o'clock at night. That's a little cumbersome. You know, we didn't make anything final until the very end. And we had actually 3 workshops, hearings on it in the evening. And we had some during the day as well. But, you know, it's a hard thing because we had so many of them.
Right.
And there was a lot of information that we had to gather and report. And, I mean, we spent quite a bit of time on that. So, we're trying to be as fair as we can and be able to share that information through the media and through our TV program, because a lot of people watch our TV program, right?
Yeah, they do, and we do
Yeah.
want to remind everybody that the city council meetings are aired live on this channel, Channel 5.
And we run them pretty often as well, so people have an opportunity to look at that, so they don't have to show up for a meeting. They can actually write a letter and tell me that they don't like something, right? So
Make a phone call.
I get those calls, and that's okay. I'll go somewhere and people tell me that they don't like this or they don't like that, and I don't have a problem with it. That's part of the system, right? So we'd like to try to be as transparent as we can and share the information as well.
Right. Now, we mentioned the golf course as a quality of life issue. Another quality of life issue that, of course, has been a big topic of conversation, both good and maybe sometimes not so good, is the multi-use complex currently under construction on the city's west side. Now, I know the city is pushing for hopefully an end-of-year completion of that, at the latest, though, March of next year.
Yeah, I think our target was March, the end of March, but we're shooting for the December 31st. The quicker we get it done, the less amount of money that we have to pay for it, right? So there's a lot of things that we're looking at that we've cut back on to try to minimize those costs, because I know it's a topic of discussion. A lot of people are concerned about it, so am I. I don't like spending that money, but it's like Coach Watley used to say, the hay's in the barn. Now I got to make sure that I stack the hay up right. I have a lot of people that come in and say, Larry, that's a good thing. Don't stop it. Let's continue going. We spend a lot of money there, and I have people that tell me, you know what, just cut it. We're done. Well, that's a big concern. Right. That's a big concern. I've always had the philosophy that, and I write on this premise that I'm not there to stop anything if it didn't work right. But I think that we should work with what we got and find an opportunity to balance it, come up with innovative ways of what we can do to make it work. But most importantly is that we're stirring economic development to get better for Alice. When we talked about those additional monies that were going to be used, primarily $8 million, we talked about what we're talking about is the off-site services. We did that $15.3 million for the project. When we look at the other services, and we had to spend the $4 million for the water line and the sewer line being out there, when we had to spend the additional monies that we needed to because of the Native Americans, so those are, and then the east and west and north and south road that was there, you need to have a road on there to get into it. I can't just put a multi-use center and not put a road. So you're looking at $4 million for the water and the sewer, another $3 million for the roads, and then the $700. There's your $8 million. Okay. Now the important thing to understand is that when we do those projects, it's not just because we want to do them. We're anticipating there to be growth there. We annexed 350 to 400 acres. That growth with the services that we're going to be provided, whether it be through a apartment complex or through single-family housing or commercial or residential homes that are out there, that's our revenue source. We're already experiencing the Whataburger and the Texpress bringing additional sales tax revenue. Now we're collecting money, okay? We're collecting money in our ad valorem as well for that land that's out there. So it's a revenue source that we're starting to bring money in, and we're actually looking at, it's going to take a while to pay that money. But I think that we're on the right track. I meet with a lot of business people. I meet with a lot of people that want to come in and spend money and actually put money into that development. So we're constantly trying to evolve with that and make sure that as money's coming in, we're paying for the project itself. So,
right. And as far as the funding that you're looking for, that you're needing to finish that, we're looking at a possible grant program through the USDA.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, there's several options. The USDA and there's what they call the Red Lake program. That's through what they call co-ops. Those are managed from the federal government and passed through to the co-ops. They're $2 million each, right? Those are no interest loans, okay? And those provide an additional amount of monies for us to use for revenue for the $8 million. Right now, we're still in discussions. The council will have those options, and there's actually a loan program as well through the USDA. So there's USDA. There's what they call the Red Lake through the co-ops, right? And then, of course, there's the option of the CO, certificates of obligation. We will look at all those options and what's less costly for us, and it might be a combination of, we'll look at our funding imbalance to see where we're at and how much monies that are available, and then kind of see, okay, what works best for the city of Alice? What's the payback time? What do we anticipate in a 5 or 10 year projection on new businesses coming in? And then put all those numbers together and say, okay, council, this is what we got. Y'all vote on what we need to do. Okay, so in my right mind, as much as it is a lot of money. There's just no way that I could possibly vote when I do get to vote to cut that project off, because that's the future of Alice. And it's important to understand too, Nicole, that when you're doing a project and you're moving forward as we are in the city of Alice, people around the state are looking at us.
Right.
If I stop a project, then everybody that wants to come to Alice is going to say, we're not going to Alice because you guys aren't working anything. So it's important in what we have as a perception and what we're inviting people to come in to be part of our community.
Right.
And when they come in, they bring dollars. We talk about the Taco Bell, and we talk about the Panda. There's other businesses that want to come in as well. So welcome them and tell them what they need. Like I said, the 2 oil field companies are getting ready for expansion. I went and met with them today and said, what do you guys need from us? Because we want to help you.
Right.
We want to be the person we want to be the city that invites people to come in, that share the gains, that share the wealth, and we can all work together to make Alice together. So that's important.
It is. And when you talk about perception and the way others look at us, you recently had the opportunity to give a tour at the multi-use complex to the Texas Coastal Bend Regional Tourism Council.
Yeah.
And now their whole thing is nothing but tourism and expanding tourism and maximizing what you have to get visitors to come spend money with you.
Yeah.
And I was a part of that group. I am a part of that group actually, and I know that they were all very impressed with the work that's being done out there, and they saw the opportunities. At that site for
they saw the natatorium, and then they saw the pool that was next to it as well, and they're like, wow, this is nice, and we're going to go back to our cities and tell them what y'all are doing, and have some revenue, because we got all kinds of really neat things happening out there, from the regional meets that will be at the natatorium, to the private parties, to the outside pool that'll be a revenue source for young families to go and attend stuff. The important thing that I always think is one of the most important is, what is it that we do for families? Because everybody's biggest complaint, Nicole, is there's nothing to do in Alice, there's nothing for us to go, let's all go to Corpus Christi. We're trying to do that. We're trying to have something for families to enjoy so they can be proud of and say, this is what we want for Alice. Everybody wants different restaurants, different types of entertainment, but they all want to stay here. And I want to keep them here. I don't want them to go anywhere else. So, that's why we do what we do. Okay, so that's important to me, because that's all what I've heard all my life, is that, what do we do in Alice? Well, there's nothing to do in Alice. Well, there's going to be something to do in Alice now. Okay, whether it be the amphitheater, whether it be the natatorium, whether it be the conference center, we want for that to be the attraction that people enjoy.
Right. Okay. Now, on a side note of the multi-use center, the city council recently approved an item to actually possibly seek an outside source to come in and manage it through an RFQ, a request for qualification, so that somebody else could actually be managing that facility rather than internally managing.
Yeah, it's important. The city doesn't take the position that should be in that business. If we have to, we will, because that's something that we're setting up. But we're looking at all the options of what's available through that process, and maybe there's a private firm that will come do it, where they'll pay us a flat fee of what it is that they do for us, right? So those are other things that the council's looking at, again, to try to see where we can save money and what it is that we want to do as a council and where we want to go as a community.
Right, very good. We want to take this opportunity now on Straight Talk to welcome our new city manager, Chuy Garcia, to Alice. Thank you for taking some time to be with us today. We haven't had a chance to meet you yet. Now, you've been in Alice a little over a month now?
That's correct, 5 weeks.
Wonderful. And how have you found the community to be
very
so
nice,
far?
very receptive, very good.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, you come with a lot of experience with municipal government. I know it's exactly what the city council was looking for when they went about their search.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about some of the experience that you have.
Well, I've been in the business for 37 years. I mean, I started from the ground up and pretty well worked in every department that I was affiliated with. And so I know all the ins and outs as far as the other departments, so I'm pretty well versed in that. And then I've been a city manager for 27 years.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your family.
I have a wife, Gracie Garcia, and then I've got one son, he's 36 years old. He's working for a company in Mexico called the Mayan.
Wow.
And we'll have two 9-year-old and a 3-year-old that he's got.
So you're a grandfather. That's
right,
wonderful.
Grandfather.
I hear being a grandfather is better than being a parent.
It is.
Is it really?
that's,
You play with them and you give them away. It's in the back.
that's pretty nice. No, get back with Joe. I was commenting the other day to him about it. And I said, it seems like you've been here a long time, but you've only been here like
A month.
A month, right?
That's
And the fun part is that we give him so much information. And,
Oh, I can
and he's picked up
imagine.
really well. Because I mean, look at all the stuff we were working on.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. You really
So-
came in at a busy time.
It
and-
is, budget time it's a real difficult time, so you have to learn the ropes and how things are done, and you gotta learn your staff and then the departments and what you're doing and the projects, and it takes a while to get into the groove.
I would imagine so. And then, like we were discussing earlier in the show, what a kind of an intense budget process this was this time around for everybody. So,
Right.
yeah, I'm sure.
Well, you have a lot of issues and you have a lot of studies that Hector has started, and so we went through that study effort, and I think the council picked up real well on it, so it was real intense.
I told Mr. Garcia that every time we had a council meeting, I referred things to Hector. I said, not that I was trying to avoid you, it's just that there's a lot of stuff that we started with Hector. There's going to be a little bit of a
Right.
transition.
Of course, of
And he's been
course.
picking up a lot of the information. He's done an excellent job with it, you know, and sharing with us ideas and the concepts that he had when the city managers in other areas. And it's really been a big help for us. So, you know, the more heads are better than that,
Yeah.
not that many. You know, when we had with no city manager here, that was difficult because it was like
Right.
a small group of people and trying to put things together. He brings in a whole different set of really good ideas and concepts of things that work for him, and we're able to use those. So that's really good for us to be able to have someone else in addition to
Outside.
carry the
to
load.
carry the load, exactly. What do you see as some of the bright spots that the city of Alice has?
Well, you've got a large community with large staff, so you're able to do a lot of things. The only thing is that money-wise, you're kind of, you're at that end where you need money, and like everything else, you need revenue to do a lot of things, so it's going to take time to get everything set up. Of course, you got a good staff, and it can be worked out to where we can do a lot of things, and hopefully we can get into the realm of getting more grants and more money from the outside to come in to help defray the costs. So that's our aim to do that.
Definitely. So, it's also important. We were discussing, we had to make these rate increases for the residents, and nobody likes to do that. So if you've got an opportunity to go after grant money, then you definitely want to be
Yes,
able
that's
to do
our objective, is to bring some outside money that'll help defray the costs. So that's our main thrust, our main idea to try to get some outside money come in.
What was impressive with Mr. Garcia is that when he started in the municipality, he started as a plumbing inspector, am I
Right.
correct?
Oh,
So he's
wonderful.
worked his way all the way up. He knows different facets of municipalities. So that's nice to have that individual from inspection all the way up to a city manager's role.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you worked on some projects in Fort Stockton on downtown facades and some tourism
Yeah, we
stuff.
did the Main Street program, and we did a tourism program, and then we rebuilt a fort and got a lot of historic innovations in the community where we attracted a lot of tourists, and so that was one of the big efforts. And of course, we did a lot of the downtown renovations that we did.
Well, downtown has been a pretty hot topic in recent years.
Yeah.
We did have a downtown group that had formed, and unfortunately, when our EDC director left, that group kind of went a little defunct.
Right.
But I know there's still a lot of interest
In doing that.
in
Renovating
reinvigorating our downtown area.
Yeah, and and sharing with EDC, of course, and then the Chamber of Commerce. I've been working with Mr. Gomez, so I tell him that this again. It's only been 6 weeks since you've been here. We've kind of like pushed all this stuff to him, but he's grabbing it. And he's meeting all the people, and people ask me, "When am I going to meet the city manager?" I said, "Well, when I get a chance to take him." Yeah. So there's a lot of business people that we will get around to y'all. And I'll take him out there so y'all can visit with him. But, the opportunity for him to be here and to work with us has really been a big help. And
Definitely.
And I appreciate the work. The council's been great, so I'm having a good time with it, so it's been good.
Very good, very good. Well, we are happy to have you in
Thank
Alice, so welcome.
Appreciate
and,
that.
yes, and as Larry says, he's going to get you out there and meet everybody. And it's just, you really came in at a really busy time and with a lot going on. We can all understand that,
Sure.
most definitely. So I thank you so much for
Right, sure.
taking some time
Anytime.
out of your busy day
Appreciate
to
it.
join us on Straight Talk. Again, we have our new city manager with us, Chuy Garcia, and of course our mayor, Larry Martinez. We thank everybody at home for staying tuned and watching this issue of Straight Talk.
thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you.